Hello everyone! You're listening to our brand new podcast from IPMI International Business School, and this is episode 1. I'm Gita, your host for today. We have Claudya, Yoga, Ariela, Yudhian, and Teguh at the studio, and I'm so excited for today's episode. We'll be talking about an important issue that has been literally on everyone's mouth. Oh, and not to forget, on everyone's fingertips, I must say. Our topic for today is the big challenges of post-pandemic e-commerce. Before I start, I'm sure all of you must be knowing what is e-commerce. Okay, just a little brief for everyone and our watchers. Basically, e-commerce, also known as electronic commerce or internet commerce, refers to the buying and selling of goods or services using the internet and the transfer of money and data to execute these transactions. First, we have Ariela with us here today with Shopee versus Tokopedia. Who has the most visitors and why digital payments becoming more favorable nowadays? Can you enlighten us, please?
Thank you, Gita, for inviting me, and I'm very interested with today's topic. And I want to share a little fact nowadays about e-commerce that have been the ups and downs visitors. Also, due to a huge surge in online shopping during and in the post-COVID-19 period. E-commerce portals have been huge website traffic or network congestion, which sometimes leads to the crashing or servers. And this creates problems for both the customer as well as the online businesses. And one of the solutions is reduce the server bandwidth to cope up with the situation. And another one is why e-commerce shoppers nowadays mostly use digital payment to shopping online. And I believe this too is also the biggest challenge of post-pandemic e-commerce nowadays.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Ila. Which e-commerce platform you think have the most visitor back when we were still at the peak of the pandemic?
Yes, Gita, from the data that I get from Databox, in the third quarter 2020, Shopee has the most visitors with 96.5 million visitors. And Shopee is still in the first place e-commerce with the largest numbers of site and platform visitors in Indonesia. In the fourth quarter of 2020, but now Tokopedia dominates the number of Indonesian visitors for 2 consecutive quarters, and Tokopedia's numbers of monthly web visitors reached about 147.8 million in the second quarter of 2021.
I have also read this interesting article from iPrice that Tokopedia and Shopee have more than 100 million visits per month. The achievement of this two have not been surpassed by other e-commerce in the country. Other e-commerce platforms only have under 30 million web visits per month. What's your take on this?
I think Tokopedia is Shopee competitors, but they have different product focus. For Shopee, more like to fashion and beauty, the most popular product categories. And on the other hand, Tokopedia is more established in mobile and electronics. Because of this, Tokopedia users are mainly men, and the e-commerce platform has been trying to get more women to coming into their site. I believe that's what makes both of them still lead the Indonesian e-commerce market post-pandemic. According to the iPress data, the average monthly visitor of Tokopedia's page reached 157.2 million in the first quarter of 2022. And while Shopee is in the second place with an average monthly visitors of 132.77 million in the first quarter of 2022.
Wow!
Yes, Gita, of course. The COVID-19 pandemic has not made many people turn away from e-commerce. Instead, they even choose to shop online and use digital wallets for payment. Prior to the pandemic, the new wave of first-time e-commerce user preferred cash payment, making cash on delivery a popular payment method. However, cash exchange has become a less safer option due to its possibility of carrying the COVID-19 virus on its surface, announced by the World Health Organization. But reported from Zero surveys, the usage of e-wallets was dominating as 59%, followed by virtual accounts 30%, and cash on delivery system 25%. Analyzing the various digital wallet options in Indonesia, Snapchat survey showed that Shopee Pay has become the most used digital payment with 50%, and during the harmonization, and followed by OVO 23%, and then GoPay 12%, Dana 12%, and Link Aja 3%. All in all, digital payment can help the virus away and let the price cuts make a way.
Thank you for sharing, Ila. I clearly remember during the peak, or if I'm not mistaken, the beginning of COVID, face masks and test kits or even hand sanitizers were very scarce. And not to mention, the prices were rocket high. What's your view on this?
Hello Gita. Thank you for also inviting me to this podcast. For me, if we are talking about the challenges for e-commerce, especially in the post-pandemic era like today, we should see the impact that is felt worldwide. First, most of all, on how the coronavirus has disrupted the supply chain. Although, in any case, our already significantly advanced supply system have also been a crucial lifesaver for the response, keeping essential for COVID medical supplies, food, and other commodities, following where they are most needed. Without a doubt, the COVID-19 pandemic has been tested our creativity as resilience and adaptability as humanity in maintaining the global supply, as they have attempted to keep up with necessary responsibilities. So the disruption, I believe, to the supply chain is still significant because the infection is still a real threat, and because some regions and economies are under lockdown while others are emerging into a new reality. The supply chain will be crucial to delivering services and goods quickly, securely, and safely as economies recover.
I get it. So you mean there is a macro impact to the situation. Can you elaborate more on this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that is if we see it in the macroscope. On the contrary, the e-commerce consumers that is forced to stay at home are currently experiencing immense boredom, I believe, like me, which seemingly increases our urge to consume, to spend our money, especially for COVID-related items. In the span of the pandemic, we've seen countless of startups that is trying to meet those increasing demand in supply, speed, and variety of needs. I believe I remember one of the startups, Astro. Astro is an example of a quick commerce, they say. Quick commerce is a version of e-commerce that are more compact and that is made for the purpose of answering the demands of consumer daily needs. I believe Astro is the one that has claimed to be able to deliver their products the fastest among others, only under 15 minutes or so. In that time, our orders will arrive on our doorstep. And even the e-commerce giant Tokopedia has also joined in on this movement. Like they also releases their own version of quick commerce, also for daily necessities, which is called Tokopedia Now. These, I believe, are the adapted evolutions of Sayurbox, which I believe was the first one to make a quick commerce system, which used to be able to provide the same needs and the same demands, but takes a day or two. Not only from the side of the e-commerce, the logistics side is also thriving. More and more startups are emerging in the logistics, and all claims to be the best in terms of speed and quality. These emergence are accompanied by back from investors here and there that are willing to jump in on the logistic business.
Hi Claudia, it's nice to have you here. From our previous conversation, I was very intrigued when you mentioned the tech winter phenomenon that was happening in tech industries, especially e-commerce. Can you speak more about it?
Okay, about the tech winter, if I quoted from the Times of India, tech winter or investment winter is happening following the decline in revenue or startup economy that happened at the third quarter of 2022. This is the era where we see investment on tech are slowing down. Venture capitalists are more cautious in investing their money because of the economic uncertainty that's currently happening. So yes, even though we could see the light at the end of the tunnel with the pandemic almost ending, we cannot lie that the implosion in public tech-driven retail and payments company has been breathtaking. With investors losing tens of billions of dollars, for example, in the US, we see that Amazon's shares have tumbled for more than 40% from the pandemic era heights. Companies that help the process online transaction took an even bigger hit. For example, PayPal plummeted around 77% from its 2021 heights, and Shopify, which sells software to help small businesses sell online, make the most of revenues from processing their payments. It's currently down 82% from a November peak. In Indonesia, it's not far different. We heard stories like Happy Fresh, who was hanging by the thread trying to save their business, which thankfully they did because of the new round of investment. But not every story ended like Happy Fresh, unfortunately. Each day we see a lot of tech startups, especially e-commerce, at the end of their runway, which forced them either downsizing or close down completely. The price war we saw at the beginning of the e-commerce triumph are now gone. No more promos. We even got charged with a bunch of additional fee that was not exist back in the burning money era.
What do you think is the crucial cause of this tech winter?
I think it's the combination of so many things, honestly. Like what was mentioned earlier by my friend about the supply chain disruption due to Ukraine-Russia war could be one of the factors. But the main one is the macroeconomic turmoil like inflation, which just not affect good prices at the end user like us, but it start become a giant alert for the VC to limit their fundings. Last but not least, clearly consumers have returned to stores more and faster than what e-commerce industry has planned or hoped for throughout the pandemic.
What does this mean to the e-commerce industry then?
Obviously, the current scenario puts the entire customer ecosystem by just burning money in serious doubt. E-commerce has to work very hard to ensure tight cost control and prolong the runway, also to emphasize on building sustainable business instead of just aiming for bigger valuation without actually turning on profits. Because currently, VC are more focused towards startups that has solid revenue model and clear monetization strategy. It also won't be a surprise for startup that has past their A-series funding are faced with more tougher screening in order to move to the next stage or the later stage.
That seems like a lot of work, and we all are eagerly waiting for this tech winter to pass by. Hopefully soon, right? Alright, anything else you would like to add, Claudia?
Okay, so maybe like a little bit closing statement from me. While we have seen a return of the brick and mortar stores, I think e-commerce still continues to play a significant role on how any business operates. I personally, as the consumer, think that it was way more fun and easier to shop at e-commerce. I also think that the current situation, which is the halt in startup investment, might not be all terrible because of for the ecosystem. Because in reality, it might actually help the e-commerce grow stronger. Survival of the fittest, I would say. In short term, situation like this is certainly hard, but in medium to long term, it always pays off. E-commerce that want to succeed needs to maintain a diverse and comprehensive digital strategy because there's a new generation of shoppers leading the online retail charge that have a new different set of values and expectations.
I definitely agree with Claudia that mentioning if the tech winter of investment winter is happening following the decline in revenue or startup economy that happened at third quarter of 2022. This is the era where we see investment on tech are slowing down. But I want to ask you, Ila, on your opinion, do you think that our unicorn companies in Indonesia will pass this era?
Yes, I heard that here has been an evidence change in tech since C Group suspended its full year revenue guidance for its e-commerce units, which is Shopee, in August back then. And the red flags should have been hoisted when Shopee generated only about 38% of its now withdrawn and full year revenue in the first half of 2022. After closing operation in Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico, and on the earlier month on September 2022, Shopee has wielded the layoff in Singapore, China, and Indonesia. In the latest sign of C's efforts to rein in costs, I surely hope that all of our unicorns company can pass this.
And what about you, Yoga? From the previous information that you told, you say that not only caused by the pandemic, we all recognize the bigger threat of our post-pandemic situation, which is none other than the Ukraine-Russia war. Based on that, what is your opinion about the stock price prediction from the unicorns after this pandemic situation?
Well, for the stock price information, I found some interesting information from the World Bank website. They mentioned that as Indonesia's economy is now recovering, the country's GDP growth is projected at 5.1% in 2022, which is supported by the growing commodity export and accommodative fiscal policy to weather the pandemic. Nevertheless, more challenging global conditions and COVID-19 scarring effects could derail the recovery. IPO unicorns prediction trend next year, especially with the new rules from OJK. Startups are also considered massive in considering listing shares through blank check companies.
I agree with you, Yoga. The initial stock offering or unicorn IPOs are predicted to trend next year. Inventors from Venture Capital Circle also estimate that merger schemes with blank check companies as known as SPAC, such as Grab, will still be in demand. Co-founder and managing partner of Gayo Capital, Edward Isman Chamdani, said that unicorn IPOs will continue to be in demand next year. Private investor will look at IPOs because growth is no longer what it used to be the startup period.
Okay, from my opinion, Pak Teguh, those startup companies should be aware with their sustainability business model. Because without considering the sustainability as a major part of their business model, both the startup companies and venture capitals would have not been achieving their long-term goal. For instance, we have heard some news recently the bankruptcy of Fabelio, startup company that engaged in online e-commerce of furniture. They had received around $90 million, or in rupiah it was equal to 285 billion from their investor cumulatively. But recently, the news said that Fabelio was unable to pay the salary of their company in September 2022, and even their creditors had filed them into the bankruptcy. Based on the fact, we knew that it is no matter how much money that the investors had been invested in the company that will make the company survive. It was the sustained business model that needed to be taken care of the most.
So Yudhian, from the investor side, what is the most important things that the investor need to focus on before decided to invest in startup company?
In my opinion, there are three main things that the investor needs to think about before deciding to invest in startup companies. First, it is important to understand the business model of the startup company. Who is the key person and the team behind the business? Does the business model sustain for a long period of time or not? What about the customer base? Does it will take over the current status quo of the current market share, or does it a blue ocean that creates new market share? On next, I would love to say the capital structure, meaning deciding to split between the percentage of financing and equity funding. Why this is so important? Because if you're not managing the portfolio risk of your money, you're about to lose the game without a compensation of the earlier amount of the money that have been invested. Okay, the last one is to decide the exit strategy. Sometimes you need to decide what is the purpose of the investment. Was it capital gain or growth and profit? On what period that you need to exit from your investment? This thing is crucial because it is about the timing and then the fundamental adjustment of the portfolio. I think that's a wrap from me. I hope it finds you well.
Guys, it was so lovely to share some of the insight and views regarding this topic. I feel so honored to have all of you here. Definitely, I'll invite you all again next for more interesting and mind-blowing topic. Thanks for listening to this podcast and stay tuned for our next episode. See ya! Bye!